Welcome back to Hourglass Podcast. Today in episode 8, I'm going to be running you through a day in the life. A day in the life in jail. Whether you're in the county jail, the prison that you're in, it could be a minimum security, supermax, maximum security, medium 1, medium level 2, pre-release, work release, camp. They're all going to be a little bit different. So I'm going to start off and talk to you about a day in the life in the county jail. Now, I got to tell you, this is some of the worst time that you will do in prison. County jail is the slowest. It is the most boring. You are stuck in there with people that do not take it seriously. You might have a guy who's about to go up for a murder rap and a guy that's in there for a child support case. So one guy's not taking it too seriously, and the other person is looking at him thinking, this is a joke to you, and I have to stay in here. I'm suffering. Now I'm going to make you suffer. So there's a lot of hate going on. You know, it's like the Dave Chappelle's player haters ball. It's a lot of that. There's just people hating on each other no matter what. They don't want to see you doing well. They don't want to see you get out. County jail is very, very treacherous for that. So the day in the life, how it starts and how I've always looked at it, the way I did my time in the county was chow to chow, day to day, week to week. If you could get from breakfast to lunch and then look at the next thing on the list instead of just being like, oh, I'm just going to let my time do me, you go from breakfast. And then it's like, okay, next thing, I got to get to lunch. And then I'm filling my time in between from lunch to dinner. Then from dinner to time you hit the pillow, you go to sleep. And then it starts all over again. And you might be like, okay, that's one day down. Now let me get from, Saturday to Saturday or whatever it is in your mind. You just got to set these little parameters and go with it. So starting off with chow, it's going to be different in every county jail that you're at. The first county jail I got locked up on the incarceration that I did, the 7.5 years, it was a terrible county jail. It was some of the slowest time I've ever experienced. The food was awful. The people, they were no fun to be around. At least when I got to prison, there was people who were doing time that you could talk to, actually carry on better conversations with, etc. County jail was just not it. It was not the place. So at breakfast, your door pops. It could be anywhere from 4 a.m. to 6 a.m. that you're having breakfast. Be ready whenever your door pops, because that's also the time when most people will run down on you. If they want to beat you up, they got a debt to settle. Maybe it might be some street beef that's carrying in there. You could have disrespected them, or they feel some kind of way, or maybe you were smoking a cigarette and you didn't let them get in on the rotation. And it could be any number of reasons these people want to jump you. Or they might just want to take your stuff. Or it could be something ulterior beyond even that. It could be a sanctioned hit. It could be something along the lines of, hey, we're telling you, since you're affiliated with us, you need to go in and deal with this guy because of XYZ reasons. And you can't just sit back and say, oh, well, tell me why. Let me fact check and verify before I go in. You got to go do it. So, you never know. Whenever that door pops, wake up. Be ready for it. There's no alarm clocks that I had in the county jail. The door was the alarm clock. Or the speaker, if they would call something over it. Hey, chow's going to be in 5 minutes. Sometimes they let you know. Sometimes they just pop the door. So, when that door pops, you don't necessarily have to be up with your shoes on, standing by the door ready to throw hands at anybody. But you should be aware. Every time that door popped, my whole prison journey, I would pop my head up at the least and watch the door. Just watch the door. Just watch the door. And if you saw a shadow coming in a way that it shouldn't be ready. Kick him in the face right off the top of the bunk or whatever you got to do. But you better be ready at all times. Breakfast can be the most dangerous time in all of prison experience. Period. Even once I got to the joint, that's when people would get hit the most on the walk. It's dark outside. They're not fully awake, everybody, so they might be slipping just a little bit. And those little advantages, those little edges, are what people use to exploit when they're trying to victimize you. So it's always breakfast time when you got to be the most cautious and the most aware of your surroundings. So now let's get into the food part of it. Breakfast in the county was atrocious. It was so bad. I still joke about it with people on the streets. I'm like, man, they give you beans for breakfast. And you're not talking like some, Boston baked beans or some bushes or something that's actually decent that you could stomach and eat. We're talking about bland, watery navy beans for breakfast. This is what you would get. I don't know who came up with the menu, but it was it obviously wasn't to try to get people to come back. But you talk about navy beans for breakfast, man, that's some kind of that's just a cruel joke. It was terrible. It was the worst. But if you're really hungry, you got to eat. So I always remember too, they had rocks in the beans. Like I remember, like one time I was taking a spoonful of them and I bit a rock and I was like, "Yo, are you serious?" And I pulled it out and I was like, "This is like from the ground." I whatever. I don't know if they were dumping them in there or if they just happened to be in there. I didn't know if it was some sadistic thing that people were doing, or if it was just the beans were so bad that they just rocks were included. But it was pretty bad. So I'd watch out for the rocks when I ate my breakfast beans. Now, it wasn't always beans. You could get some pancakes, maybe. It might be like a box of cold cereals, possible. A lot of times it's just bread or like oatmeal or farina or cream of wheat, and that's what it would be. You might get a little bit of butter, some syrup, something like that, but it wasn't much. You might get like one of those school cartons of milk or juice. You could be getting one of those with your breakfast. Either way, there was not much on the breakfast tray. It wasn't really that good. A lot of times people would just get up and give the tray to somebody else in a trade. Like, "Hey, I'll give you my breakfast, but I want your lunch." And be like, "Okay, I don't want this lunch today, and I like breakfast." So you could work these little deals out with people, or you could sell it for a stamp or a cup of soup or maybe a bag of chips or something like that. So you had options, but, breakfast wasn't really anything to look forward to. So in the county jail, after breakfast, you go back, you lock into your cell for a while, and they don't pop the doors for usually a few more hours, and there's like daytime hours where the doors are open. It's at this time that they'll allow sanitation to take place. So a lot of times they'll come in and they'll be like, "All right, time for sanitation." They'll pop the door to the tier or the block or whatever it is where you're at, and they'll put in like a broom and a mop bucket, and maybe some cleaning supplies, but nothing too crazy. And they'd be like, "Okay, somebody's got to clean the shower," and there might be a guy assigned to it to clean the shower. Almost like a mini pod boss, I guess you would say. Like some of these guys were more interested in the sanitation aspect, so they would jump to that. A lot of early risers in jail were the old guys. Myself, I was not an early riser. As soon as we go back in after breakfast, we'd make sure our door was shut, and I'd usually sleep in the morning. I'd stay up at night. I've always been a night guy. So I'd be up later at night reading, talking, playing chess, checkers, cards, whatever with my bunk buddy. We would stay up later usually. And in the morning hours, the morning was the slowest time for me. It was just the sanitation guys would be out. They'd be cleaning the floors up, doing that whole thing. And they'd be watching daytime television, the absolute worst. I hate daytime TV with an absolute passion. I loathe it. I can't stand it. I've had to go and get my oil changed, and I'll sit there and they'll have these TV programs on, and it takes me back to the county jail where they're all watching whatever it is, Judge Joe Brown or any of the dumb judge shows all day, or First 48 or Cold Case or something like that. I never understood, and I still don't understand, when you're locked up, why do you want to watch a whole bunch of stuff about courtroom, murder cases, all this? That's what we're around all day long. And you just want to see more of it? It always blew my mind. Like, the amount of Law and Order episodes that these guys would watch would blow my mind. And I'd have to hear that stupid ding-ding sound all the time. I hated it. I hate daytime television with an... I love to hate it because it's so annoying. It's the worst, dumbest stuff. So that's what's going on out there. I would choose to sleep up until around before lunch. That's when I would get up and my day would really get going. I would sleep through it. There's guys that would sleep 20 hours a day in there. I don't know how they did it, but they just slept their time away. And kudos to them because they didn't have to deal with a bunch of the nonsense. I couldn't do that. But the daytime part, I hate watching those stupid reality judge television shows. It's like we're all locked up. Why do you want to watch some more of courtroom stuff? Like we're all going back and forth to court all the time. It's just crazy. You'd think you'd want to watch something else. Anything that takes your mind out of that place, not continues to constantly remind you where you are. But whatever. I never understood that. The same thing in prison. It just, it was crazy to me. So after sanitation, this and that, like they might come around and say, all right, does anybody want to shave today? And they would like sign you out like a little Bic shaving razor or whatever. You take that back and you have to bring it to them within a few minutes or whatever, because a lot of times they're on top of it. They didn't want you to take the razor and go off and just slice somebody up. So shaving razors were signed out, and you'd have to bring them back, even though they're disposable. But that would be maybe a couple days a week that they would do that. So that happens after breakfast and before lunch. Sanitation's going on. It's a lot quieter in that morning period in the county jail. It's just much quieter. There's a few guys that are up and about, but honestly, most people are in their cells sleeping, of which I was one. So next thing you know, lunch comes around. When lunch comes around, that's when people really start to get up and go about their day. That's when things start to, like the action starts. Like you can feel the energy starting to come into the atmosphere. People are awake now. Lunch can be decent. It can be hit or miss. A lot of times it's miss. But you're going to get maybe, like that cafeteria pizza that you would get in like school, like the little squares. You could be getting, a lot of the time it's sweaty meat, which is just prison bologna. It's about as good as it sounds. Jailhouse bologna. It's not good. And it was sweaty meat. You'd look at it and look like it was just condensation dripping off of it. Yeah, you can eat it. Not many people look forward to it, but that's a big part of lunches in there. You get that. You might get a grilled cheese. Sometimes it happens, but lunch sucks. It's not good. It's a little bit better than breakfast, but it's still not good at all. Like I said, county jail, the worst. So people are bartering trays for other food items if they could do that. All right, so after lunch, this is when it starts to get a little bit busier on the block. Tabletops. The tabletop games are the primary way that people will pass time socially in jail. A lot of people will just stay and read books as long as they can in their cell, or you get a little headset radio. You can listen. You got your little earplugs, and you can be a small radio with like AA batteries, and you can just try to catch whatever station outside. So a lot of people will just listen to the radio all day, or read books when they're by themselves. But when it comes to like social things, like when you're spending time with other guys on the block doing things together, it's going to primarily be tabletops. What do I mean by tabletops? These are the games that are played in there. Whether you're playing chess, checkers, backgammon, any kind of card game. You get into spades is the most predominantly played game in every jail that you go to is going to be spades. It's fun. It's a great game. I love playing spades. I played countless games. I can't get a game going on the streets to save my life. Nobody wants to play spades, so I got to play internet spades every once in a while. I'll pop on, and when I really get the itch, I'll pull it up and I'll play a couple hands. And, you know, it's a good time. It's fun to play with partners. That's the way to do it. And no one wants to do it on the streets, unfortunately. I think maybe they know I'll just take their money. Who knows? I'm not that good, but I do like playing. Hearts, a little bit different. A lot of people don't know how to play hearts, but once you get into it, it's a super fun game to play. Once you get into Pinochle, now you're talking about like a higher skilled, more difficult game to play, but it's another tabletop game. So Pinocchle's great. You can play it with partners. You can play head up, just you versus one other person, or you can play cutthroat, so it'd be 3 people. So, and it's every man for himself. So you can play it with 2 people, 3 people, or 4 people. Pinocchle's a great game. It's different than spades in a way, like spades you got 13 books, right? Pinochle, you got 20 cards in your hand at a time. So just getting used to holding 20 cards is different than, you know, 13 for spades. And you have to know how to bid your hand. You have to know, it's like I said, it's different for each. I'm not going to get into teaching Pinochle on here because I'd be doing a whole video just on that. But you'll start out with a cheat sheet, which will tell you how to bid your hand, what the numbers are for the cards that you have, etc. It's a great game. Great game. Once I learned it, that's all I wanted to play. It was that one. I'm definitely not playing with people on the streets. I can't even get a spades game going. I'm definitely not going to get a Pinochle game going. So the only time that would probably happen is if I were to ever be locked up again, which that's not going to happen. So, been home way too long. I'm not going back to that place. So, tabletops are one of the biggest time-passing things that you can do in a county jail. And an interesting thing about tabletops, the people that you play cards with, or chess, checkers, spades, whatever, tend to be the people that you're going to be hanging out with, that you're clicked up with. It's very interesting. Like, you'll have the dominoes guys. The guys that are playing dominoes or triominoes, which is, you know, like a triangular form of the game, which is very fun to play as well. The people that play games together usually hang out together. And I don't know if that's because of they're playing the games that makes them hang out, or if they were hanging out and then they decided to play the games. But the people that you rub shoulders with the most on tabletops are most likely going to be, you know, your buddies. That's just a weird, interesting little thing that I picked up on. I was like, those guys hang out all the time, and they play all the games together. So you might not be able to just go sit down with someone and be like, hi, can I play a game of chess with you? Probably not going to happen. So you kind of got to stick to your little subdivisions, your groups, your cliques. Stay within those bounds, and you know, you can pass your time. But yeah, that was definitely the biggest way to pass time in the county jail. Now, this brings up another point that most people do not understand anymore. It's the art of conversation. I can't hardly talk to people anymore because they're so busy sticking their face in their phone. You'll be speaking to them, and they're just staring at their phone, not listening to you, can't carry on a conversation. Now, you don't have phones in prison for the most part. Some people get them in there, but as a rule, you're not supposed to. I know that some places have tablets now, etc., but you have to be able to speak to people when there's nothing else to do. You have to have some form of conversation. And a lot of times it's not going to be talking about particle physics or math equations or French literature or something like that. I'm just saying things that obviously people in jail aren't going to talk about. You talk a lot of trash. There's a lot of jokes in there. There's a lot of stories being told. But the art of conversation is what would help your day go by a little bit better. Once you learn how to talk to people and you could communicate with them, that would make your time go a little bit faster. You got to be careful. Don't get too comfortable with somebody because familiarity breeds contempt. And that means you might start saying things out your mouth that you probably wouldn't have said otherwise. So be careful that your art of conversation doesn't get pushed past a point where someone's going to take it as disrespect. So that is included in tactful conversation. It's very difficult to find people on the streets to converse with because they're so consumed with their own thing. They're so busy watching a show on their phone, walking through the grocery store, or it's just distraction after distraction. And it's very evident when you go to speak to a lot of people. They can't carry any kind of conversation at all. In jail, you have to have that ability if you want your time to go a little bit quicker, because when you're talking to people, your time will go by. You hear some great stories, some amazing stories from people. I've heard some wild stuff about guys who they'll tell you their war stories, and it's powerful stuff, man. These people who, man, I was about to unalive myself. Got to be careful for the algorithms. People tell you how they were going to unalive themselves, so they would go get a massive amount of heroin and just stick it in, and just thinking they're not going to wake up. And somehow or another, they survive. And these stories that people have to tell you, I mean, there's a trove of knowledge, a trove of information that you can get from people when you converse with them. So that was very, very important to be able to listen and to be able to carry on your end of a conversation with other guys. Your time's going to go much smoother. I promise. Another thing that happens in there, now we're in between lunch and dinner. Haven't got the dinner yet. Calisthenics, working out. This is one of the main things that people are going to do, obviously. You got your games, you got your radio, you're reading your books, talking to people. What else are you doing there? Not much else to do. The TV's on, especially if you love that daytime nonsense. That's always on. Calisthenics, working out. I've never really seen weights in a county jail, and they even ended up taking the weights out of the prison system that I was in. So you're going to be doing push-ups, pull-ups if you can find a place to do pull-ups from. Sometimes you might be able to, there might be a pipe somewhere in a bathroom or whatever that you might be able to do them from. It's different in place to place. Some places I've found spots to be able to do pull-ups. Some places there's no such place. So jumping jacks, push-ups, running in place, core, things like that. You're doing bicycle kicks, sit-ups, that kind of thing. People work out a ton in jail. I mean, it's almost, you don't have to say it, but it is a very, very big part of the day. For me, when I was in county jail, the most that I did push-up wise, I would do 750 push-ups, when I would do them. And it took me a while because I was weak coming off the streets because I had just been getting high. I wasn't exercising, wasn't taking care of myself. So to get to that point, it took me a little while. But I would do a ton of push-ups, pull-ups when I could, dips, like back arm dips off the bunk, that kind of thing. And something that goes along with working out, people would do it in groups. Like you might have 3 or 4 buddies. It's like, all right, we're going to round robin and do push-ups here. So I'll do 25, then you'll do 25, and you'll do 25, and it'll just keep going like that. And it's like, okay, let's go around. Or you might do the card deck, which is a pretty cool one. Like I can't remember what it comes out to, but it's several hundred push-ups if you do the whole deck. So you'll take a deck of cards, you'll flip it over. Say the first card is a 4. You do 4 push-ups. You get down, knock those out. Get up, flip the next card. It might be a 10. Okay, you're doing 10. And then face cards, your jack, your queen, your king, your ace. People do different numbers for those, so that's why I say it could be. I don't remember each person's specific workout for it, but it could be, like 10 for a jack, 15 for a queen, 20 for a king, 25 for an ace, or they might just do 25 for all those. If they're really feeling froggy and they want to get some work put in. So the deck of cards is one way to do it. I just got to the point where I would build my numbers up. I'd be doing up to 50 push-ups at a time when I was doing sets. The most I've ever done, I've done, I think like 110 push-ups straight, something like that, and I was burning at the end of it. I mean, like my shoulders were more on fire than anything. Like my chest, I was feeling it, my back arms, a lot, but my shoulders would be on fire at about 110, and that's the most that I can recall ever doing in one clip. But you got to really, really stay on it to get to that point. But you got nothing else to do, and it helps you fall asleep at the end of the night. It also helps to basically protect you. It's like people see that you're working out, they're going to think twice about fighting you as compared to the guys who don't work out at all and just sleep all the time. They're easy marks. But if you take care of yourself and you start to add a little bit of size and a little bit of strength, they will think twice. So it's a good preventative measure to exercise, because it might dissuade a couple of people from trying you. But then again, that's not guaranteed either, not even at all. Jumping jacks are big. People do bend and reaches, where you're just doing like toe touches, like reach down, go reach to the sky, reach your to your waist, bend down all the way and touch your toes, and then just hit your waist again, then up to the top, and just keep going. And that's a good way to build your wind up. Like if you just do those quickly, you do 1,000 bend and reaches, your wind's going to get built up, because you're not running track, you're not running around for the most part. So it's going to be jumping jacks and bend and reaches for county jail wind development. If you want to catch a little bit more stamina, in case you got to get scrapping with somebody, you want your wind. So a lot of that's going on. And one of the weird things that would go with calisthenics in there was the water drinking. Like people would drink cups of water. It was this whole like, well, I'm going to do 50 push-ups and I'm going to drink a cup of water. And it was like, okay. So it was just this weird thing. But people stayed hydrated, used the bathroom a lot, and just drinking a ton of water. Drinking a ton of water was just kind of like a thing to do. It was like something to add in, because it's just boring. It's boring in there. It's absolutely slow, just dragging time. So I don't know who came up with the water thing, but it seemed to be a lot of places. Drink water when you work out. We drink a ton of water, cups of water. Just keep drinking them. So that was common for whatever reason. Since you don't have weights, there's another option that would happen at times. You would get the water bag. Now this could be tricky to get a water bag, but what would happen is sanitation, like they'd have a couple bags sometimes. Here, bring the trash bags over here, and we'll take the old ones out and put the new bags in, whatever. You might get a couple extra bags, and guys would double these things up. I used to do it too. When we could get extra bags, we'd fill them with water so they're heavy. Now these things are really awkward and cumbersome, but the water bag, you could do curls with it. Like we would get some sheet and like cut it up and make a little handle out of it, so you're gripping this thing, and you would just do curls with a big trash bag full of water, or you might get it behind your back and you're doing tricep extensions. So there's different options for that, but it's something to do. It's pretty much just curls. Everyone's just going to curl the water bag. Yeah, that was pretty much a county jail thing. I didn't see that in prison. No water bags, nothing like that. But it was It was definitely in a county jail. So now we're getting into, that's been like your afternoon from lunch, heading up to dinner. This is typical day in the life stuff. Now dinner comes around. Everybody's starting to kind of wind down a little bit at this point. Because the end of the night's coming up. We're going to be locking into the cells at some point. So dinner is kind of like the last high point of the evening, unless there's a playoff game on or something. Dinner's not good, but it's probably the best of the 3 meals in the county jail. You might get some spaghetti. You might get some chili macaroni, which is just hamburger helper. Could be some more sweaty meat. Could be pizza. But nothing fantastic. You might get some salad, which was really just a couple pieces of lettuce. Nothing much popping off there. And that's dinner time. Not fantastic, but it's still usually the best of the trays that you're going to get brought to you in the county system. So after dinner, you can get your shower pretty much throughout any time of the day, but a lot of times people would take their showers after dinner because that's when everybody's already worked out. They're getting ready to go back in for the lock in for the night. So most showers are taken after dinner. So you want to try to get in there when you can. Get yours done quick. You might be taking a cold water shower. It just depends. But yeah, so that's going to be after dinner time. And then TV, more people around TV at nighttime than any other time of day. Again, a lot of Law and Order. A lot of that. Can't stand that show. Just because of how many times I've seen it in there. It's anyway, so a lot of Law and Order all the time. Unless sports are on. Now, sports are on, that's going to take priority, especially playoffs. So that people are going to be around the TV all night. Every now and then it might be movie night in the county jail. They'll play a movie, and it really just depends on who's there. Like, are the guys going to agree to watch this, or do they want to watch something different? And you get a lot of fights over the TV. One of my favorite stories, this made me laugh so hard. There was a guy I was with in prison who told me about when he was in the county jail in Annapolis. And he said, man, this is a great story. He got into a fight with some guys on his tier because they kept running the TV all loud at night. And he wanted to be the guy. He was like telling him, he's like, man, you going to turn that TV off. We're all trying to sleep back here. And these young kids were waking everybody up. Nobody wanted to say anything to him. And he goes, turn the TV off. So he goes shut it off. They turn it back on. He turn it off. They turn it on. And now it's like, okay, what's up? So he told him, he said, you turn that thing on again one more time, I'm going to break it. And I guess they thought he was bluffing. So they turned it on and cranked the volume up. Thought they were just going to carry this dude. Well, he went over, grabbed the TV, ripped it off the wall, and slammed it on the ground. As he's telling me this story, I'm dying laughing. I said, oh, man, so what happened next? You already know. He goes, oh, I got stomped. He was like, they beat the crap out of me. I said, how many of them were they jumping on you? He was like 6 or 7. So these young kids beat him up real good. But he got taken off the tier and put in a block right across the hall from him. And you could see across the hall through the glass, windows. And he was over there watching TV, and he started taunting them, and they were so mad. He said they were threatening to kill him and all this. And I said, what do you mean? They didn't give him a new TV? He goes, no. So they were sitting over there with no television. He smashed it and broke it. And he was laughing. I was laughing, and I thought it was a hilarious story. They put him on the tier across the hall after he got stomped, and he was watching his TV over there with those guys. And they're sitting over there all mad, and, there's nothing they could do. It's not like they just get another TV put in. So TV's a big deal. People fight over it. And, yeah, I guess every once in a while you catch the wrong guy and he'll break the TV. So when they do that, it gets pretty boring pretty quickly. So, yeah, TV, it was one of the biggest distractions, obviously. So near the end of the night, now you don't get hot water, you don't get microwaves, you don't get like a hot pot in the county jail. So what they would do is they'd say hot water carts coming around, and they'd bring around these containers that were full of like boiling hot water. And you could go up and the guards would distribute the water to you. Like if you wanted a cup of coffee, you'd take your little cup up and you'd get a cup of hot water. Now, or you're making a noodle. That's the only way you're really going to make them properly. I mean, you can make them with cold sink water, but it's not going to be the same. So if you got some commissary noodles, ramen noodles, oodles and noodles, whatever, the cup of soup or the bricks, you got to have some hot water for it. So bring this cart around at the end of the night, and you can go ahead and make something else, in case you're hungry. It was something different. In prison, you had the hot pots on the tier. Certain tiers in prison had microwaves. Those were the honor tiers. We didn't have microwaves on our tier. It was just a hot pot. And I made a stinger, make my own hot water in the cell once I was able to do that, which saved me a lot of headache. I didn't have to fight the line to try to get some water. Somebody uses it all up right before you get to it, and it's lock-in time, and you're stuck without anything that you can make food-wise. So stinger was the way to go for me. I absolutely, I wouldn't do time without making a stinger if I had to be locked up again. Like, I'd automatically make one right out the gate. So that's pretty much a day in the life of the county jail. It's not going to be all those things every day. You might be locked down because of a fight, and then they're just going to bring you bag lunches and toss them in your cell. So you better hope you got a couple books or a radio or a bunk buddy that you can get along with, or a deck of cards to play or something. There's ways to make your time pass by, but in the county, you're not like going to school. You're not learning any trades. You're not learning anything from like any kind of self-help groups. You're not moving around too much. You're not going on like a bunch of visits. You're not going outside of the yard. You're pretty much just warehoused inside, and you have to find things to do. Think of that movie like Biodome. You're pretty much locked in, and you have to make the best of it. So, and a Biodome, that's a terrible reference, but just trying to think of somewhere where you are locked inside and you can't get away. So that's the county jail. There's not really any getting outside to anything else. But at the end of the night, it's pretty much the 3 R's when you're locked in your cell. Reading, the radio, or you're rapping with your cell buddy. Something to talk about. And that's how most people end their days in the cell, winding down. Some people are up all night, and they'll just sleep until lunch. And, it really just depends who you're locked in there with and what kind of time that you're on. Younger guys, more likely to stay up all night talking. Older guys, they're going to go to bed earlier and then get up earlier. It's just how it was. It's how they do it. So that is essentially a day in the life of the county jail, and you got to consider this. When you get locked up and say you have a small amount of time, it might be 90 days for suspended license, just for example. You're not going to be like, oh, I just have to wait until my 90 days are up. You're going to have to go chow to chow, day to day, week to week. And that's how you'll be able to apportion your time in such a way that you're doing your time and not letting your time do you. Did you catch that? You do your time and don't let your time do you. If there's no intentionality or focus behind the way that you carry out and execute your day, then you're just going to be dragged along by whatever happens around you. So you might not have control of much in there, but you do have control of some things. And that's how you do your time. I hope this was a helpful insight to anybody who is thinking about getting locked up, or you might be actually going to the county jail. If you're going to the county jail, then prepare for kind of what I'm telling you about right here, because that's most likely what your routine is going to be. So thank you for everybody who stuck around to the end of the video. I appreciate y'all as always. Give me a comment, like, subscribe, share the video if you liked it with your friends. And as always, the wise man doesn't get himself into what the smart man has to get himself out of.